Some spirits enter quietly wrapped in warmth and welcomed with affection. Others, however, are born into fire, into homes where silence hurts deeper than words, into households where love must be earned or performed, and into bloodlines based on controlled turmoil or silent sorrow. And if that's you, if you've ever sat at the dinner table feeling like a stranger in your own house and thought, why me? Why this? You're not broken. You are not compelled. You were picked. Carl Jung did not think that the soul was put at random. He felt that the self, or profound intellect of your being, chooses not the safest road, but the most transformative active one, and those with a distinct frequency. The black sheep, cycle breakers, empaths, and intuitives are frequently born into families that are unable to supply their needs, not because they are unworthy of love, but because they are here to transmute the lack of it. This isn't punishment. It is initiation, a divine cry laced with grief. Let's look at why those who feel the most out of place may, in fact, be exactly where the soul intended them to be. According to Carl Jung, comfort does not help the soul evolve. It develops from friction. Perhaps nowhere is this tension more formative than in the family. According to Jung, we are born into a familial complex, which he defined as an inherited emotional blueprint created by our parents' ideas, traumas, and unsolved wounds. These complexes function under our consciousness, much like the psychological scripts we get at birth. You will be the caregiver. You will become invisible. You shall bear our humiliation. However, sometimes a new soul enters the bloodline. A soul whose existence starts to disrupt the script. This marks the beginning of individuation, the soul's quest to completeness. It begins with tension, alienation, and even exile. But at its heart is the holy wound, the initial break that provides a path to self-realization. This discomfort is not unintentional. Jung thought that your greatest sorrow frequently masks your soul's actual journey, which in many cases begins with the wound of being born into a family that cannot properly recognize you. This is the archetype of the chosen one, not the favored kid, but the one brought to consciousness, the one who sees what others reject and feels what others suppress. Not to endure indefinitely, but to turn generations of gloom into light. Let us now delve further into the whole soul-level reasons why you may have been born into the perfect family for your soul. Here's the first reason you didn't come here to tell the story. You came to break it. Some families passed on heirlooms. Yours handed along. Silence, shame. There's also the skill of pretending. No one tells the truth, but everyone feels it. There's a way. Things are finished. Unspoken norms are engraved into every gaze and repressed word. Do not weep. Do not question. Do not talk unless spoken to. And, for the sake of the family, never reveal what hurts. But then you arrived and something was in. You couldn't follow the script. You could feel the wrath underlying the silence. You can sense the sadness. Nobody dared to express themselves. You noted how affection was conditional, depending on how well you followed, rather than who you were. Carl Jung thought that familial trauma did not simply evaporate. It happens repeatedly. It exists in the shadows of generations. Until someone is born who sees it, that someone is you. You may have spent years wondering what was wrong with you, why you never felt at home in the place you were intended to be. Why did the rules feel foreign? Why couldn't you laugh as they did or believe what they all believed? The reality is, your soul has distinct instructions. You are not here to fit in. You came here to awaken. You were here to hold the mirror. No one wanted to investigate, to say that this stops with me. They may have refused. You were disgraced. You were dubbed theatrical, defiant, and selfish. However, what they termed insurrection was essentially a recollection, because you recalled something they'd forgotten. That love shouldn't hurt. That quiet, does not equal safety. That faking is not peace. Breaking the trend will not make you a favorite. It may make you an outcast, but it will make you complete. Because the wound was never yours to bear. You just inherited the echo. And now, with your awareness, you can make choices. Your willingness to live differently. You become the first breath of fresh air in a bloodline that is drowning in denial. This isn't betrayal. This is sacred labor. You're not a broken branch. You're the originator of something new. Let's look at why your spirit selected this exile. Not as punishment, but as a way. This is the second reason. Not all presents are packaged with affection. Some wounds are acute, unseen, and holy. You may not recall the first time you felt it, but somewhere along the line, the environment taught you. You were very passionate, intense, gentle, wild, and real. Or perhaps not enough. Not deserving of notice. It is not safe to be seen. So you separated. You learned to smile, even while you wanted to scream. You learned to shrink, to fit in the room. You became what was required. A caregiver, a peacekeeper, a reflection of your own spirit. Carl Jung dubbed this the sacred wound, a psychological breach that not only hurts, but also hollows out. However, something begins to stir within. Your totality slowly emerges. The youngster who observed carefully, who detected slight alterations in tone, knew when love was going to change. Who grew proficient in stress. That youngster was not feeble. They were growing wiser. Jung thought that the wound is where light enters, not the light of perfection, but the light of awareness, the depth of the soul. Many people born into toxic homes bear an unseen legacy, an extreme sensitivity that feels like a burden. What if it isn't? What if it's the one thing that will rescue you? Because pain, when confronted, becomes power, and the sacred wound does not require you to harden. It asks you to soften into the reality rather than numb it. Listen to it rather than despise it. Inquire as to what wisdom exists inside this ache. What strength was developed amid the silence. You are not broken because you believe you are becoming. Because you do. The sacred wound is the invitation your spirit has been yearning for, a path back to oneself. And although it began in darkness, it is now guiding you to light. Let's proceed, because the following explanation may explain why they never saw you, and why it was also part of your journey. Here's the third explanation. You witnessed things no one else would talk of in families where quiet was the norm. You observed everything. The forced grins, the unsaid regulations, the tiny energy fluctuations. When someone entered the room, love was denied while truth was twisted around comfort. Even as a youngster, you couldn't stop seeing it. Hypocrisy, control, and emotional games. You may have been told that you were overly emotional, sensitive, suspicious, or too much. But that was never true. Carl Jung felt that certain souls are born to see intuitively and sense through the unconscious. They come not to fit in, but to shed light on poisonous families. Illumination is harmful because it undermines the delicate framework that denial has created. So when you stated what no one else dared to, the tension, partiality, and manipulation, you became the danger. Not because you were incorrect, but because you were correct. Your knack for perception was not a weakness. It was your reluctance to live within the deception. You were not born to play a part in the family play. You were born to notice the script and go off stage. This explains why the black sheep frequently feels ostracized. They are not lost. They are clear. Jung would argue that you are not intended to mend the family structure, but to rise beyond it, to become what they could not confront, to live a truthful life rather than a performance-driven one. In doing so, you become a mirror reflecting back all that has been suppressed. Not everyone will thank you for it. Most will not. However, Spirits such as yours do not come here to be understood. They come to shatter spells and reveal what is concealed, to reawaken a bloodline that has forgotten how to feel. So, if you've ever felt ashamed for naming what you see, remember this. You were never too much. You were the light in the room that no one wanted to turn on. And that clarity, that boldness, is not an impediment. This is your gift. And here's the final reason. According to Carl Jung, the parent's unlived life has the biggest impact on the kid. That weight might seem heavy, like an invisible chain tying you to a tale you never wanted to inherit. However, there's a contradiction. Sometimes the youngster outgrows the parent's expectations. You could have thought you were born into this family by mistake. An error in a soul's lineage. Misplaced. But what if you are precisely what they were looking for? Not to mend them, bear their suffering, or be their savior, but to demonstrate how healing may be achieved by just becoming who you actually are. You see, soul growth isn't selfish. It's rippling, reaching back through generations and gently stroking the roots onto the soil of your family tree. When one individual awakens, the entire bloodline experiences the quake. Not everybody will follow. Not everyone is prepared. But you are a seedling pushing through the fractured ground, the revised path, rewriting what was previously assumed to be permanent. You choose to confront your holy wound. Walking the path of individualization and completeness is a revolutionary deed. It stops the pattern not by battling the past, but by being a live example of change. You have inside you your ancestors' unfinished stories of love, lost trauma, suffered, quiet held, in your own being. Those tales start to alter. You become a mirror, reflecting what was once concealed, a beacon that guides people back to themselves, even if they are unaware of it. So, if you've ever questioned your position amid the pandemonium, remember this. You're not a mistake. You are the divine plan unfolding. The light is returning home. And in your being, you carry the hope of healing not just for yourself, but also for all those who came before you and all those who will follow you. That above all is the gift. Draw a deep breath. Feel your feet anchored firmly on the ground. Beneath you, place a gentle touch over your heart. Speak these words quietly and with focus. I was not born in love, to become lost. I was born with anguish, to become cognizant. Now, take a minute to contemplate. What patterns am I trying to break? What did my wound teach me to see? What truth am I still afraid to name? Healing is not a selfish act. It is sacrosanct. Work for yourself, your ancestors, and future generations. This is how the chosen ones advance. Not with pomp or fanfare, but quietly and bravely from inside. If you were born into a toxic family, please know that you are not cursed. You were picked, chosen to see what others could not. I decided to feel profoundly, even when it pained. They chose to rewrite the tale rather than repeat it. Carl Jung believed that the soul arranges its existence to discover the fracture that serves as the entryway. You're not broken. You're becoming. Even if your family doesn't comprehend your route, the self does. Welcome to the bloom, where every wound contains wisdom and black sheep become generational healers.